one of the ways I frame, jumping off from what you're saying, how Gen AI affects us. Everyone talks about create productivity. A few less people talk about creativity, and I want to talk about that too. But I want to start with something that's not immediately obvious, but eventually it dawns on you that these are knowledge management tools. I mean, you can upload a PDF to any chatbot and talk to it. That just changes the way you interact with information. Now, where I want to go with that, it's a bit more abstract, is it's quite amazing just how well, for lack of a better term, this self-assembled information engine works. Kasi nga, you had the phrase that said, these tools don't imagine yet. But on some fundamental level, that's all they do. They hallucinate. And it just so happens that maybe 9 out of 10 times they hallucinate according to our understanding of the world. Therefore, we agree. But then there'll be that 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 100 times where the hallucination is obviously completely, off the beaten path, and we say, oh, that's a lie or that's fake. So what I want to ask you is, as a student of learning, is how much of this do you think we have yet to fully understand? Kasi nga, like I'll give you a counterfactual so you can appreciate it better. Like, we all seem to universally accept the internet now as a medium only because we think what's on the internet was created by humans. Wikipedia was written by humans. Social media was, for the most part, written by humans. But then when we're faced with a phenomena where in the same internet we see a completely machine generated piece of stuff, we suddenly say, nope, I'm not going to trust this. It was completely fabricated, or it doesn't have any real meaning. This machine just created a word salad that just appears intelligible. And to me, just going the opposite extreme, so what? So if it helps me understand an esoteric concept like, particle physics better, because this word salad appears to be written in a better form than, the best physics professor I've ever met, didn't I achieve the same goal? No, but you can argue both ways. Pero I want to hear from someone who studies learning. Does that come to play, in the learning design of the future?
Okay. I will answer that, but I think what you just described is very similar to the photographer saying, I'm a purist, right? Photography should be the lights and shade, the light and shade should be captured on film, not generated, right? So we already know how that story ended. I think we're carrying a bit of that attitude over to learning, because I am not anti-technology. I think what humans are looking for are, how do I understand this? And that's the key word. How do I understand? Not how do I know. Knowledge is different from understanding. And I'll tell you a sidebar story which is related, because I'm a huge fan of Malcolm Gladwell. And because I really love the way he tells stories. And then I also am critical, so I look at the criticism of Malcolm Gladwell's work. And the criticism is usually from academics who say he's just ripping off ideas from academics and turning them into a story. But I will never read the academic's work, and I'll never appreciate it, because I mean, I'm an academic, but I mean, in that context of my life, now I read academic journals. Um, but that time I needed to understand. I think the first book was Tipping Point. It was recommended by our regional PR chairman and said, you must read this when you want to understand how trends, in fact, the term was social epidemics happen, how trends happen. And I read it and I loved it. And I read so many Malcolm Gladwell books after that, because I understood. I understood and I was able to use it, apply it, and that's what that's what education is for, right? Um, I'm doing a deck on learning experience design right now. I have uh, um, a talk, and education has two Latin uh, uh, words where it was drawn from. One is educare, which is to train and to mold, and the other one is educere, which is to draw from within. And I think we are so hung up on educare, which is we think we train and mold, and we forget that education is also about drawing me in and leading me towards my learning objective, my goal. How funny, because you had to go back to etymology, Latin etymology, to find out why is it so messed up? Because we chose one, which is to train and to mold, as opposed to guide and to draw out. We have One recognizes we have it within us. We just need to be facilitated, guided, not taught by a sage on a stage, but to be guided, have a guide on the side and say, what do you think? Right? What have you thought about this? And I think that's, but also it's context, right? Industrial revolution, factory versus now trying to understand the world in a way that suits you.